We are not as they are. Satanists see themselves as being aliens when compared to what we perceive to be a herd of vapid simians who surround us. Whether they believe in Jesus or not, they are Christers to us. I'm not talking about those casual Catholics and Protestants, many of whom really only have their religion because it is passed along by their parents. I'm talking about those who have personal relationships with God and Jesus, who really feel that they are soiled by sin and need to be saved. These creatures are empty at heart and seek an outside source to vampirize as they attempt to ease the perpetual pain of their existence. This type is typically found amongst the born-again, but they don't always bear this label. They are, by our standards, fiends, whom evidence shows have often previously tried to ease their life pain with drug addiction, violence against human and non-human animals, and usually have lived for a time not by productive effort, but by crime. They are motivated by hatred for all who have joy in their lives. And now that they are Jesus jockeys, riding on the back of their mythical savior, they consider themselves to be elect and superior to the rest, with their constant pain a testament to their elevated status. In truth, it is we who are natural and they who are alienated from nature itself. And they too sense that we are different. And they hate us for it. They want to keep away from them, to be free to live in the pursuit of the wondrous indulgences of mind and body that our one and only life can hold for us. They hate us for our capacity to experience these pleasures, preferring to think that they will someday experience something akin to our joy, but only after life has ended. For them, life is not precious, as they believe their true awakening will come post-mortem. They long for death to complete themselves. They also can see how much we love our lives, and so they want to take that away from us using whatever means they have. In the past, this hatred was empowered by the alliance of the state with organized Christianity. The two worked mailed fists in velvet glove as ecclesiastical and secular authorities cooperated to crush those of a Dionysian caste. The life haters sought out any who had that spark burning brightly within, and in the end the vital ones were often tortured and murdered. Enough of our kind were sufficiently savvy to escape their attentions, but this war was waged by these living dead with the goal of making everyone else's life a misery equal to the one they experience. Who won? The Christians, as they killed thousands, but we gained some consolation from the fact that, in their lust for death, they accused many of their own and consigned them to the rack and flames. Today, you might ask, how have things changed? The answer, gentle Satanist, is that the means are different, but the motivation is the same and still pervasive. The institutional church has now been severed from the state, and it may no longer confiscate property and execute those it deems as heretical. But the Christian by nature is still in the majority today, and they cling together as a dull and brooding herd, ready to lash out at any who evince the black flame's lambent spark. Observe our high schools, particularly the public ones. I did. I survived the incarceration called education and can comment upon it firsthand, as could any anthropologist analyzing a barbarian horde under his observation. 'Tis a fact that the Christians, as they cling together as a dull and brooding herd, ready to lash out at any who evince the black flame's lambent spark. Observe our high schools, particularly the public ones. I did. I survived the incarceration called education and can comment upon it firsthand, as could any anthropologist analyzing a barbarian horde under his observation. Most of the students are dull and insipid. They seek to fit in with their peers, to obtain a place in some sort of hierarchy. They find certain types who rise above them, bullies who can physically intimidate them, and students who come from wealthy families who socially intimidate them. These are their icons, their leaders whom they fear, upon whom they attend with metaphorical bended knee, often with a sneer emblazoned on their lips, or the rictus of terror. But our herd is not complete. They need another ingredient. The mediocre majority cannot abide being the lowest in their pecking order, though they accept their place as not being top of the food chain. They must also create a caste of untouchables who will be their scapegoats. They need someone to be a visible bottom of the barrel, that they may safely deride. These will be the students who everyone picks on, who are universally despised, and it is clear who they will be, the ones who are not like most. The Christian types can literally smell the difference. They mark those who are creative, who are studious. They brand those who do not share their values of slacking off or joining in on team sports. They condemn those who are more perceptive, for such is clearly a danger, and to them unfathomable to an extent that it appears like magic. These outsiders do not grant the herd's icon sovereignty, so they are seditious to the accepted order. They are led by their muses and human icons who have achieved what they admire. Fear is not part of their equation, and their smiles are born of delight, not contempt or terror. And their smiles are born of delight, not contempt or terror. And it has ever been thus. The Christian types engage their deeply woven xenophobia to allow themselves to see these others as not part of their tribe, and so not to be granted the status of being human by their definition. Most certainly they are denied any shred of empathy, and we know Christian type is capable of so little, if any. The Jesus-loving mob always correctly identifies those who are like you, dear Satanists, and they will do all they can to quench your spark, They always have. Remember, Columbine is a case in point. In this upscale Colorado high school, violence erupted, which was shocking to some people. 2 students, Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris, brought weapons and bombs to their school and began to exterminate students and teachers. When the situation ended, the shock world focused its attention, and it was discovered that this deadly duo were the Bright Kids. They were more skilled with computers than anyone else in the school, and were even consulted by the faculty for their knowledge. They wrote poetry. They listened to music that was not the kind chosen by the majority of their peers. They dressed differently. They were clearly not of the body, and were apparently mocked by the other students for ostracism and the usual social cruelty so rampant among the fledgling herd that is commonplace in the fetid rookeries known as schools. But here there seems to have been a difference. Klebold and Harris were intelligent, but something drove them to seek desperate recompense for something uncommonly painful to them. We may never know the truth regarding the actual motivations of these 2 killers, but it is conceivable that this school would be like so many others and supplies a context that provides a plausible explanation. They may have been tortured at the hands of the jocks, cheerleaders, and the common herd spawn whose enshrined heroes gave them the needed approval for their daily performance of Hassle the Nerds. As is typical, the mediocre want to be elevated in the eyes of their social gods, so bullying the outcast becomes a sort of sacrifice by which they hope to earn the favor of their capricious and mediocre idols. That may have been the case here. If it was, these sacrificial lambs refused to be led to the altar of holocausts. Klebold and Harris came from families with money, so they had the wherewithal to purchase firearms and ammunition, as well as the materials needed for explosive devices, which they were smart enough to know how to construct, and, as everyone later discovered, to deploy. So it looks as though the alienated struck back at their oppressors. A lesson that history has taught us is often the consequence when such situations arise. One thing might have helped diffuse the situation. Satanism. If Klebold and Harris had understood real Satanism and chosen to live by it, their vengeance spree would not have happened. Satanism would have taught them that, indeed, they were not like these others, and that such is a positive attribute. Satanism would have taught them that they had only one life, and that their intelligence and talent would take them along paths which would lead to their drinking deeply from that cup which is oft but once. They would have known that Satanists practice lex talionis, making the punishment fit in kind and degree the crime. With their superior intelligence, they should have been able to respond to taunting with verbal wit and made responsible administrators aware of their pain. They would see that the herd cannot help their nature, and that the human who really flows with nature learns to walk nimbly between these ponderous golems to snatch the bounties that the dullards will never even see. Satanist finds a way to prevent the torture, and means to be free, to prosper, as living well is truly the best revenge. As living well is truly the best revenge. If these two had a Satanist perspective, they would not have seen the transitory period of high school as being such an insurmountable burden, and they would not have been compelled to commit heinous acts against innocent victims. Instead, they saw no way out, and thus made their last stand, and perhaps did so as a gesture for those they thought to be like themselves. They are now icons for the alienated, and an example that sets up and is to be that desperate others may follow. Satanism can stop it. Satanism sees the futility of martyrdom, as what matter is it becoming a symbol while losing your own life? To the Satanist, his own life is the most precious. Let fools die and become symbols. Self-immolation is herd think. Christian lifeblood, the essence of their creed. And so in the siege, they essentially finally adopted the herd's premise that one's own life can and should be thrown away. Who won at Columbine? The herd did. They now felt justified in having feared these outsiders while they lived. The herd then deified those who had been killed by the outsiders, and when one listened to the praise being uttered on talk shows and throughout the media, canonizing the dead by exaggerating their achievements, it showed the true nature of the masses. Remember their faces, their righteousness. They absolved themselves of any guilt. They absolved themselves of any guilt and saw their worldview glorified. They will always continue on this path, as they are convinced that the killing was the fault of those outsiders alone, who embodied ultimate evil by their difference to the mundane crowd. The possibility that the two killers might have felt that this was their only means for fighting oppression was dismissed. Satanists do not condone these acts. But we aren't so naive as to be unaware of their possible causes.